Hi, this is Michael Jansen from tinyhousedesign.com. In this video, I'll run through the different components that you'll find in the print and cut worksheet. The backstory is when I created this book, Tiny House Floor Plans, the first thing I did was make all the different components, and then I drew the components, or I drew the floor plans from all the components, so I was able to reuse these objects. So in design, we like to think of patterns as being a language, and it's actually a really great book called Pattern Language. It's very expensive. If you're a designer, you probably already have it. But basically in the book what he describes is that in the world around us are patterns. A doorknob is a pattern, a light switch is a pattern, a chair is a pattern. These things, we know what they are because they look like what they should do. And we see them repeated over and over again. And so in a floor plan, it's easier to communicate what's in there if the objects are just reused and repurposed. And the whole point of the book is to really show how different things can be arranged. It's really a bunch of design exercises to help people start to think about how to arrange a tiny space, how you can fit so much function inside such a small space. So that's the backstory. So what I did was I took my palette of patterns, all the different things you find in a floor plan, and I made this worksheet. And I'm making it available free. You can just go download it if you like. And it basically has everything in the house. And so let me run through what those things are. So I have some sinks, refrigerators. These squares, when you see this kind of a square, that's 2 feet by 2 feet, just as a point of reference. And cabinets, upper cabinets, 1 by 1 upper cabinets, 1 by 3 upper cabinets, 1 by 2 upper cabinets, 2 by 3 cabinets. I think you start to get the idea. Some stoves, a little hot plate. In tiny houses, a 2-burner above counter portable hot plate is very common. Refrigerators with cabinets above, refrigerators without. I'll speed it up here. These are countertops. And here's some countertops with sinks, different placements of sinks. And I tried to use kind of standards. I mean, there aren't really any standards for sinks and things like that, but I used common dimensions. So these are the kinds of sinks you could probably pick up at your home improvement store. Here's some counters with the cabinets above. And then I have some that are actually completely arranged, where you have these micro kitchens with a fridge below, or could be a dishwasher below with the hot plate on top and the counter and the sink, etc. Let me scroll up. These are those same objects, those same items. A refrigerator, a below-counter refrigerator, below-counter washer-dryer. That's one of those, like a marine washer-dryer that washes and dries. I hear they don't work so well, but some people use them and they're a great space-saving item. And also a dishwasher. And then some others. So like this one is 2 by 6, 2 by 6, 2 by 4, and you can just tell because it's like a double square. And these upper cabinets here are 1 by 2. So once you start to see how the sizing works and you start placing them, you'll see how the dimensions work. Bunch of chairs, sofas, end tables, stools, tables, fold down off the wall table, a card table, or folding, put away kind of table, folding chairs. Here's some folding chairs. I have them dotted so that, because they're not there all the time. They're just there when they're unfolded. Some common chair seating arrangements with their stove, with the fireplace in between, gas fireplace. The little dotted line around the gas fireplace is the heat distance, or the fire safety distance between that and the objects, the chairs. File cabinets below a desk, just a desk without going into the detail of what's below. A big cabinet on this, tall cabinet on the side of a desk, a narrower tall cabinet. wood stoves. And as you can see, wood stoves have a larger fire distance, fire safety distance around them. If you have fireproofing against the wall surface, which is what this thing is, you can place it closer to the wall typically. Check the manufacturer's specifications on each stove. And then without any, you have to really place it out in the room. These are those little gas fireplaces, bathtubs, showers, some big sinks. These are kind of this is what you would typically find in a normal house, normal sized house. It's like 2 by 30 or 32. But in a tiny house, you'd probably want to build a narrower, shallower counter, or use a pedestal sink or one of these micro wall hanging sinks. Composting toilets. I have duplicates in here so that for some objects that you might want to use more than once in a drawing, or for whatever reason. It's just handy to have a duplicate so you don't have to print the whole thing out again. Side-by-side washer dryer, stackable washer dryer. These are windows. They fit on top of the walls. If I go down to the walls, you can see they would fit right on top of here. As I played with this, I found that using a little bit of tape probably would work nicely once you get things kind of situated. Start taping down the objects like windows. Otherwise, as you're trying to move one object around in paper, it gets kind of frustrating. Doors, double doors, closet folding doors, beds, bunk beds, queen beds, king bed. You can see how in a tiny house a king bed would take up, well, you probably couldn't fit a king bed. Murphy bed, so this is a shallow cabinet. This is about as shallow as you can get with a Murphy bed, because of course it folds up into that. Here's a 2-foot deep one, which you don't need for the Murphy bed, but it's handy if you've got 2 feet deep cabinets next to it. Here's a couple little spare narrow or shallow cabinets. Twin sofa beds fit really nicely in tiny houses. It's like a futon bed or something, because they don't extend so far into the room. You can still walk around it. Queens, they get a little bit cumbersome because it takes up almost the full width of the inside of the house, at least a mobile tiny house. And then I've drawn a bunch of bathrooms. So just like with the kitchen counter units, I drew some complete bathrooms because these get a little frustrating to work with, working with all these different little parts in paper. So instead of cutting out each one of these little parts like you could above, instead you could just cut out the rectangle and just use that. And these are sized to fit on top of the mobile tiny house size, which is the 8 by tiny house size. And then there are a couple others that could go lengthwise in the house against the long wall, like these. And you could imagine these as wet baths or not. It's really entirely up to you how you want to imagine it. But I've included a few with the washer dryer, stackable washer dryer. I don't have any that show the side-by-side washer dryer just because I think that's a real waste of space. I figure, if you want to do it, go for it. But I didn't add any here. I just added them onto bathrooms. It's also good to keep plumbing together typically, although that's pretty darn easy to do in a tiny house because you don't have much more room to go. It's not very far to run a pipe. Spiral stairs. One is up and one is down, and it doesn't really matter which one you use as long as you use one on the upstairs one and one on the downstairs. These would not work in a mobile tiny house, typically because there's not enough headroom. And if you play with it, you'll find it's just way too big. So these would work in like the 12-foot wide examples that are down below, the 12 bys. Same goes with these stairs. And actually, it's kind of a fascinating just exercise to take these and lay them on top of the other of the 8 bys and see how big a staircase is, how much square footage it takes up. And what I mean is these are shown to be about the legal size, so a 3-foot wide stair, and the number of stairs would get you up about 8.5, 9 feet. So I included them just because they are in the book in the larger houses in the 12 bys and up. But and then this is a library ladder, and this is just a little ladder. and the little dotted line is where it would slide to. So it's like a library ladder that slides. Okay, moving down. So, and now the rest of it is just the outlines of the houses. So there's 8 by 12, 8 by 16, 8 by 20, 8 by 24. 8 by 20 is probably the most common big tiny house that you see. Once you get up to 8 by 24, 8 by 28, these are typically custom trailers. You're going to have it built. You can find them, but it's pretty rare. And then 12 by 12, that's a really good cabin size. I've seen a lot of people build 12 by 12s, 12 by 16, 12 by 20, 12 by 24, 12 by 24, and 12 by 28. And that's it. So I hope that helped. And go download the worksheet and enjoy. Thanks for watching.